Hello everybody and welcome to Newsday. Now we kick off here in Nigeria where the Senate Chief Whip Orji Uzor Kalu last week laid claim to being the most qualified to become Nigeria's next Senate President. Now according to him, apart from being the highest ranking senator in the 10th National Assembly, there's a compelling argument for the next occupant of the position to be a Christian from the southeast in order to balance out the Muslim ticket of the controlling political party, the All Progressives Congress. Well, Arise News analyst Dayo Shobowale joins us now to analyze Orji Uzor Kalu's bid for the Senate presidency and his argument against a Muslim Senate presidency. Good afternoon and welcome to the program today, Mr. Shobowale.
Now,
it's always awesome to have you here as well. Let's get straight into it. Earlier, I believe it was last week, the president-elect alluded to the fact that he is more focused on a government of competence as opposed to a government of unity. Now, in light of this, how imperative do you think it is that the Southeast is represented, that this particular Senate presidency seat goes to the Southeast?
Well, Orji Kalu is entitled to seek whatever position he wants. But he must look at it in the context of the political strength of his party in his own particular area. You can't eat your cake and have it. He supported the Muslim ticket based on competence. Get me? And that ticket has secured the presidency of Nigeria. He cannot turn around to berate that same system. Now, the Muslim ticket has its own problems. And people were deeply suspicious because Nigeria is a secular state. Nigeria is a secular state. But it went through with all the problems it had. But then it has the major, the most difficult terrain in the southeast, where Orji Kalu comes from. So what will he bring to the table as his contribution for being considered to be Senate President? Right now, they are doing the gubernatorial election in Abia State, and Labour Party is swinging to victory. They have taken 16 out of the 17 constituencies. In the last presidential election, I think they had over 370,000. APC did not have up to maybe 50,000. So if he is in terms of political strength, he's coming naked to the table. And then again, if you look at the statement of the president-elect, he said he will not be bothered by issues of religion or ethnicity or by competence and character. You get me? And then, you see, I think deeper, because some people have said Orji Kalu say it is his turn. I think it is a way of ridiculing the Emilokon concept that brought Tinubu to be president-elect now. But like I said earlier, that one was based on cheating and indignation. That no, he was the one who put the incumbent president literally there before he became power, and that now it is his turn. I mean, is Kanu politically of that or that caliber in terms of political acceptability? No. And then he comes in with some baggage. He had a problem with the EFCC. It was the court that returned him to the National Assembly. But then, that is the beauty of democracy. It is the person that people elect that wields power on their behalf. He was lucky enough, his people still accepted him. And now he's still Senate. So he can aspire to be anything, but he should not ridicule that Emilokon concept and then go and find a way, you get me, of maybe reneging on what he did with the Muslim ticket before he comes down as if he wants to eat his cake and have it. That's the way I see it.
Now, just before I get to the main question, I'm just wondering why you think that him saying it's his turn, you're seeing it as a ridicule when it might be that he's trying to possibly appeal, to the Emiloko effects almost. It might come across differently, but I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, the Emiloko thing is my turn. Mm-hmm. Maybe he never said it that way, But people have said, Kalu has said, I heard it on TV this morning, that Kalu has said it is his turn. You get me? The Emiloko thing, I repeat again, is a cry of pain. This was Timaeus. Somebody was being bypassed, and he felt he has made tremendous contribution to the leadership, and he deserves to be considered.
Okay, well, maybe he'll tell us what he meant eventually. But,
Yes.
APC has made it clear that it hasn't zoned the Senate presidency, to any of the zones,
Yes.
and that none of the zones has any right, to this. I'm just wondering, when you compare that to the speech of Bola Tinubu during, as president-elect, during his acceptance speech, it looked like he was opening his doors, to basically be rather inclusive. So how do you think he will strike that balance between being inclusive and saying that no zone has a right to the Senate presidency?
Well, I don't envy Tinubu how he goes about doing it, because people have been so used to this geopolitical zoning that I don't see how, I can't guess how they will receive it. But then let him produce a candidate. Then we see where we go from there. But you see, the Muslim ticket has changed the zoning apparatus, the way we see it. So a new political equation will have to emerge, you get me? And I think he will go out of his way to use the criteria of competence and character. Competence is ability to deliver, efficiency. Character is honesty, integrity, trust. Get me? And be honest. Which are real virtues on the Nigerian political terrain right now. But he, like I said, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands.
Right.
Yes.
Now, although Orji Kalu is the first person to officially declare his willingness to be considered for this position, there were some rumors a few weeks ago. Ahmed Lawan, of course, Orji Kalu himself, Barao Bibrin, Godswill Akpabio of Akwa Ibom, Adams Oshomole of Edo State, Abdulaziz Yari of Zamfara, and Dave Umahi of Ebonyi State. Now, I want to focus on that Ebonyi State because a chieftain of Ohaneze Ndibo has said that there is no such thing as Emilokan in the southeast, that they're focusing on republicanism. But however, if they're looking at it from a Republican angle, that this position actually belongs to Ebonyi State because it's the only state in the region that has actually produced 3 senators for the APC. Right. What are your thoughts about this? Because it's a tricky balance, as Cynthia alluded to earlier. But this is what some stakeholders in the region are saying.
You have mentioned the strength of Ebonyi State. If Ebonyi State comes in, Kalu has no locus, because you said they have produced 3 senators. That's a contribution. What you see is like a political investment. What do you bring to the table? What capital do you have to contribute before we move on? If somebody contributes 100 million and you bring in 100,000, you are not in the running. Either in terms of political strategy or in terms of political contribution. If you have not performed on the field in the election, there is no dividend that will bring to the party. So the party will, I think he is relying more on his own personality as a former governor, a well-known person, somebody who owns the Sun, the Sun newspaper. So that's what he's relying on. But this country has moved on. As you can see from this last election, this country has moved on. I won't say he has missed the bus, but it is, ambition should be made of standard stuff than what he's offering.
When you say the country has moved on, Mr. Shobowale, I think that might be relative, because some might say that it's a case of just, remember, help me out here. I don't know if it's a case of moving on or just accepting, what the reality of things as opposed to what the ideal might be.
Yeah.
So if, in fact, the Senate president emerges and it's also a Muslim, that it's someone that's also...
I'm not saying that.
No, I'm not.
In fact...
I'm just saying, let me get to what I'm trying to say. If that if a Senate president emerges and he's also a Muslim?
I doubt that.
Let's just pretend.
There'll be no balance in there.
Exactly.
Look, as long as the Senate president does not come, to me, this person does not come from the southwest or the northeast. Do you get me? That's the president and vice president. You get me now? The president-elect is southwest, the vice president is northeast. As long as the Senate president does not come from those two sides, it can come from anywhere. Yeah,
but
regardless of whether it's...
You're talking about competence, and even though you mentioned that Orji has a case, with EFCC and whatnot,
but he was elected.
Yes, he's also ranking
most senior.
Yes,
ranking member of the Senate.
Ranking member of the Senate. So, in terms of competence, will that suffice, or there needs to be more?
And just to buttress what Cynthia is saying, when you listen to Orji Kalu's, or when you read his statement, he does allude to the fact that the Senate has unspoken rules. There's a protocol that the leadership of the Senate generally follows. Yes. And if we're to follow that protocol, then he is next in line.
In terms of
seniority,
but that is not on. It's not an examination.
So is it time to abandon the unspoken rules that determine who leads the Senate?
Look, you have to, how do I put it, juggle so many things. You have to juggle so many things. And the best I can do is what I've said. Provided the Senate president is not from the northeast, not from the southwest. You have, in terms of competence, you have competent people from other places in the east now. The east, the south. Very competent politicians from various professions and with experience. Even if Kalu is the oldest, maybe just 1 year or two more than some people who are there. And then if you look at his own baggage, the fact that he has faced EFCC before coming back, even though that is the mandate his people gave him, that is law.
But who is without baggage, to be honest? Who is without baggage, to be honest? Do you know that?
Maybe somebody from Ethiopia.
Okay.
But must be realistic. You must set standards.
True.
Yes.
Well, that's a tricky thing to say when we look at Peter Obi's petition to the tribunal, but that's another story for another day. We're going to focus on Orji Kalu. Now, the just concluded governorship and state houses of assembly elections really highlighted, I think, brought to a peak ethnic tensions. There was a big focus on conversations on the digital space in Lagos. However, it seems that there were reverberations across the nation. We'd heard similar murmurings. It wasn't quite as intense and toxic, but there was similar throughout the presidential campaigns. It didn't go without saying that the Igbo people do feel that it's time for them to have greater representation, to have a bigger piece of the pie. Now, how important is it for the president-elect to assure the Igbo people that they are part of this project called Nigeria moving forward? And how does he balance that, whether it's through Orji Kalu or through somebody else?
I think that is very clear. It's because Orji Kalu has showed up. That's why we are discussing him. But there are areas, aside from the fact that Labour Party swept the southeast, there are areas that APC made some inroads. People from such area can throw their cap into the ring and challenge for the position, and they'll be considered. You get me? It's because he's the first to come out. And who knows? Maybe even these senators have their caucuses. Maybe even from his own area, they have picked somebody. You get me? Which, when they get to their main caucus, they throw that name forward. And then they discuss it and reach a conclusion. But just because he jumped the gun does not mean he must be considered willy-nilly. You get me? That's why we are discussing it. He jumped the gun. The race they have not blown the whistle for the race to start now.
Yeah,
people are just speculating.
In terms of those that are expressing
give
their
other people a
interest.
chance. There are many illustrious senators from the southeast.
Yes, I'm
who are
saying,
in
you know,
APC.
Earlier on, I know Vimbai touched on this, you know, those that are also vying for the position. So if you're going to look at those who've expressed interest, whether it be Dave Umahi, Barao Jibrin, Godswill Akpabio, Sani Musa, would you, if you could pick, let's say top three. Top three. That's why I'm asking you. If you could pick top three, you know, based on your assessment of their competence.
Yeah, you throw three, then I assess them.
Oh.
Throw three on the table.
Okay. Orji Uzo Kalu, Sani Musa, Godswill Akpabio, Barao Jibrin, Dave Umahi. Make your pick.
I will pick Akpabio.
Okay.
Yeah, former governor. And you see, we are getting too political now. He was one of the first people to step aside for Tinubu at their primaries.
Okay.
If you remember. So maybe it will be payback time for him.
So just based on that gesture,
bargaining. Yes.
Just based on that gesture, that's how you rate the competence?
That's political bargaining.
What about competence? That's what I'm stressing.
You don't know Akpabio? Are you a Nigerian?
We're interviewing you, Mr.
Look, Akpabio was, a distinguished governor, and now he's a senator. He was a presidential candidate of his party. And you get it now, and he was gracious enough to concede when he knew he could not move forward. That's politics. It's just like the Emilokon syndrome too. The timeliness matters for it to be appreciated. So if it's to be rewarded for that, there's nothing wrong with that. That's political bargaining, horse trading. This is the name of politics.
It unfortunately still doesn't address the fact that the first three citizens of Nigeria will not represent one of the biggest tribes in the country. So I think that's the point of contention, and that's the premise.
What do you mean one of the biggest tribes in the country?
The Igbo tribe.
Look, the Igbos, don't let us go into difficult history now. IPOB is there. In the east,
let's not go into difficult space.
Then the Civil War was there. But right now, Obi won 11 states. You get me? So Igbos have made tremendous inroad into getting the presidency in Nigeria. Obi came third, but don't bring in that sort of ethnicity now. We are a federation, so don't let us kick that out. Don't let us bring that out. But the Igbos have performed wonderfully well. You get me? Obi has 11 states, then Abuja, the federal capital of the Republic of Nigeria. He won there. And you don't see that the Igbos are part of the mainstream?
Well, I believe this is a conversation that is being had across Nigeria and that we'll continue to have for a long time. But thank you for your views. Please just hold on in studio. The conversation does continue as the final outcome of the governorship election in Abia State, southeast of Nigeria, has not been announced following the decision of the Independent National Electoral Commission to stay action as it deals with inconsistencies arriving from results from Obingwa, the local government area of incumbent Governor Dr. Okezie Ikpeazu. Barrister Eze Chikamnayo is the Governor's Commissioner for Information and Strategy, as well as Chairman, People's Democratic Party's Media and Publicity Committee in Abia State. He joins us now to discuss the debacle over the governorship election results. It's great to have you. A very warm welcome. Let's get straight into it. How prepared is the PDP to concede defeat if that is what we hear the results being announced as has been scheduled for today, 4 p.m.? Are you ready to concede defeat?
What we're asking for, my sister, is very simple. Let there be no double standards. INEC, during the collation of the presidential results, made it very clear when Labour Party and other parties asked for them to pause, review, and then declare. They said, no, we don't have the capacity. We don't have the legality to do that. They said, since the results have been collated at the states, that only the courts can decide otherwise. Now, INEC cannot, must not, and will not approbate and reprobate at the same time. What is good for the national coalition is good for the Abia coalition. Declare Obingwa result. as already collated at the local government, where there was no incident whatsoever. The returning officer, who has been proven to be a known relation of one of the contestants, Mr. Alex Oti, cannot review, cannot alter results already collated at the local government without incidents. And that's what we're saying. INEC must not be found to be applying double standards. We know the contestant from the Labour Party, Alex Oti. He has been bullying the media, bullying the INEC, bullying the citizenry, trying to ride roughshod over them. But we said, no, let us have the same standard for Arochukwu, for Umuahia South, for Umuahia North, for Ikuano, for all the local governments, Osioma, Aba North and South. If you are going to do a review, forensic, whatever it is, do it across the whole local governments. But if you are not going to do that, why will you single out Obingwa? Why do you have to single out Obingwa when we have local governments like Umuahia North, when the result was collated and then at the state collation center it mutated from 7,000 to about 16,000? You're not talking about that because the woman who is doing the returning, Mrs. Oti, is related to Alex Oti, and she is interested in declaring results where Alex Oti is leading, and then withholding results for review where PDP has a stronghold. We must not allow this double standard. That's the point we're making. It's not about who wins or who loses. It's about double standard. It's about INEC approbating and reprobating. It's about INEC shifting from the rules they have set for themselves, the precedents they have set for themselves. That's what we're talking about. Nobody is talking about who is conceding or who is losing or who is winning. What we're saying is let there be equity, let there be justice, let there be fair play, let there be equal treatment for all the parties in this election. And right now we say and we repeat, INEC cannot approbate and reprobate. What is good for Obingwa is good for the national coalition. Let all the results already collated at the local governments, just like they have done for 16, let them do it for Obingwa. If they want to review, we are not against that. Let them review the whole 17 local government, because the same situation, the same challenges you have with beavers anywhere in the state is what you have everywhere in the state. So there's no need for all of this double standard, and we cannot take it.
Oh, thank you.
That's what we're saying.
Thank you, Barrister Eze. We understand the collation begins or resumes at 4 p.m. today, in spite of the points that you've rightfully made. Depending on how things go, whether they go in your favor or not, what would be your next step if things don't go the way you anticipate? Even though INEC, like you rightly pointed out, had one particular standard that they held on the national level, and now something else is going on the gubernatorial level. Are you prepared to take up your matter legally?
We won this election clearly, and we don't see anything happening otherwise. Abians have voted. Let their votes count. Obingwa has over 150 registered voters. You cannot disenfranchise Obingwa with 150 registered voters. That Alex Oti is busy doing more of the noise does not mean he has all of the facts. And the fact remains that Obingwa with 150 registered voters is too important to be discountenanced. And you cannot go in there to do a review that you have not done in 16 other local governments. That is injustice. That is unacceptable. That will not happen, and that should not happen. Whatever is the standard INEC has set for itself using the precedence of the national election should be applied to Abia, nothing more, nothing less. As for accepting the outcome, what we are saying is this: before you talk of outcome, let's talk about interrogate the process. Let us ensure that the process is not filled with sentiments, double standards, favoritism, and bias. That's what we're saying.
All right, Barrister Chikamnayo of the PDP Abia State, thank you so much for this update. And of course, we look forward to the development of events as collation recommences at 4 p.m. Thank you so much. We bring the conversation back into the studio with you, Mr. Shobowale. What do you make of everything that is transpiring in Abia State, especially because Obingwa LGA it was within Abia South, I believe, which is within the constituency that the sitting governor, Okezie Ekpeazu, lost in the senatorial election. So it's very difficult to gauge whether it's a PDP LGA or whether it's a Peter Obi LGA or a PDP or a Labour Party LGA, seeing as we're splitting everything everything apart. What's your take on this contentious LGA?
I read in the papers today that Labour has won 16 out of the 17 local governments there. So it's just one now. And is it saying that because of one, they will pull down the entire election? Labour is OT is on the highway to victory. It's only one remaining now.
Well, according to him, it's a LGA of 150,000 voters, so it could make a difference.
Yes, a big LGA. But will that nullify all the other votes in 16 local governments? Please be realistic. It's all right for people to agitate, but let us look at the merit of the agitation, not just agitation for the sake of it. Just one local government, and then he thinks they will bring down the house.
Well, I mean, that's his opinion, which is fine.
Yes.
But one thing that can't be disputed, that's as clear as day, is the different standards that were brought up. We saw how things played out during the National Collation Center when INEC was asked to, put things on pause because the process was basically being challenged, and the INEC chairman carried on. But in this case, like what we've seen in Abia and in some other states, they're comparing and saying, how come one standard applies on the national level and another applies on the gubernatorial level? So I think it's pretty plain that INEC is picking and choosing how it addresses issues during collation. What would you say needs to be the standard moving forward?
The standard is general. You get me? But the context is different. The context is different. The way people react to issues. You saw that of Delta the other time and one or two other places. People took their defeat with grace and things went on. But this particular one, I really do not understand. They said Labour has won 16 out of 17, and this is the last one. You get me? I mean, does that mean even if Labour loses in that place, Labour still will win? That's the way I see it. And what they should do, they see, if they have done 16 local governments, they've used the same standard. I mean, you cannot. Are you saying that INEC is doing geographical allocation of standards? That is not possible. It's the same standard. It's only we are talking of human beings from various areas with various temperaments, with various logistics. You get me? And tempers. So the way I see it, let INEC complete what it has set out to do. It has postponed up to a certain time. Let INEC come and declare the result.
All right, and let everybody else go to court. Mr. Dayo Shobowale, thank you so much for your input and your analysis. As always, we do appreciate your time.